Welcome back. This is RGR. I'm Ryan, and this is Going Rogue, but with a guest this time. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that sub button, the notification bell, leave your comment below, and leave me a thumbs up if you like this one. This is back by popular demand. The other half of a crossover that I put up the other day. Everybody seemed to want to get a piece of it. While it doesn't go over that great on the podcast, evidently goes over great here. So because I have the video version of it, I wanted to get it out to you guys. Take a listen. It looks like, as of this recording right now, we think it could be an early season matchup between the Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's important to this discussion. So hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know what you think. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit those. This is Bill Riccette. Check this out. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching this one. I'll have some film review from Dan over the weekend, and I'll see you next week. We're going to go over what the Carolina Panthers have done, and it's been quite a bit in this offseason because your Chiefs are going to play them this season. I don't know when. You don't know when. We'll find out the schedule sometime, hopefully by the time you hear this, but if not, very soon after. Coaching change, quarterback change, man. I mean, there's so much to cover with your Panthers. What do you think has been the most dramatic change this season?
Yeah, the biggest shock certainly was, of course, the release of Cam Newton. You know, we knew the day was going to come eventually that Cam Newton was no longer going to be a Panther. But I thought going into this offseason that would be in 2021. I thought, you know, even with the new coaching staff, I thought they'd give him one more year because Cam Newton, they would have only owed him, you know, we use the term loosely only, but $18 million for a starting quarterback in today's NFL is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, they're paying more on a per year basis to Teddy Bridgewater than they would have paid for Cam Newton. But that definitely was, you know, the biggest surprise. Now, I will say, I always shout out Ben Albright for this. When we were down to the Senior Bowl this past January, he actually kind of tipped me off, said, hey, the Panthers might have some interest in Teddy Bridgewater. You know, I'm still thinking, okay, they might have interest, but is this really going to pull through? And sure enough, the reports started flooding in from like Diane Rossini and all them saying, yeah, the Panthers are talking to Teddy Bridgewater. And then lo and behold, 3 years, $64 million for $63 million for Teddy Bridgewater. So yeah, that was definitely the biggest surprise, I think, of this offseason. You know, obviously the coaching change. We knew that last year was going to be a make or break for Ron Rivera, and injuries obviously played against him. But still in all, this is a David Tepper move. He wanted to give this franchise kind of a fresh start, but at least he was, you know, the timing obviously was surprising, but in a way, like, that was respectful for Rivera, right? Because it gave him those 4 extra weeks to kind of reset himself. And then look, he ends up getting another head coaching job. He's in Washington now. So Matt Rule comes in. I'm excited. I think he's the perfect guy for this type of rebuild. So I'm excited. I expect it to be a down year, but I think you can definitely see light at the end of the tunnel. And I think Panthers fans are excited for what's to come with this franchise.
Man, it's a tough one because I'm a huge Ron fan. I am quite a bit older than you, I am sure, because I watched Ron play in Chicago when I was a kid. So that gives you an idea, right? So
yeah.
I was rooting for him. I'm glad that he found a landing spot, and I'm shocked it was Washington, but that's a whole other show. But were you surprised that it was Rule? Of all the selections that could have been options out there, going with a program builder from the college level rather than somebody who deals with adult men in the locker room?
Yeah, as we were kind of wading through the coaching process, I kind of had to come down to 2 names. It was Matt Rule, and it was actually one of your guys, Eric Bieniemy. I thought he was. I mean, I'm still surprised that he does not have a head coaching position. You know, obviously exactly. Obviously what worked against him this year was that there weren't a lot of head coaching openings, right? We only had like about five openings this year, which is low for a typical NFL offseason. We're used to seeing about 7 or 8 teams a year looking for a new head coach. But here's hoping that 2021 he finally gets his gig, because I mean, you start looking at the teams that might be looking for a head coach in 2021. You look at the Jaguars are probably going to be in the market. You know, that's just the first quick one that comes off the top of my head. The Falcons, possibly, if they if they struggle this season. So there's going to be options, I think, for Bieniemy. But I figured it was between him and Rule. And like I said, I think Rule is a good candidate because, like you said, he went to two colleges, basically were doormats when he took over those colleges. And in the span of about 3 or 4 years at both schools, takes them from double-digit losses to double-digit wins. So I think he can do that here with the Panthers. Again, I think it's going to be a multi-year. I've been saying 2022 to me seems like a solid target for when this team, I think, will get back to competitive status, because there's a lot of young talent and obviously a brand new coaching staff. So everything needs to gel. You're going to have growing pains, and it's a very difficult schedule. There's not really a lot of winnable games. But Matt Rule, I think, has that winning attitude and that positive attitude that's going to feed off to all the players. And as these players, I think, start to buy in to what Matt Rule is selling, I think eventually you're going to start seeing some good results.
Yeah, and I think that goes into what we saw in the evolution of their roster getting younger, and they added a couple of nice pieces. Are you comfortable with Teddy, and do you feel that there was the right decision to make him the guy that you're going with?
Yeah, look, I've been a huge Teddy Bridgewater fan for a number of years, Ryan, and even going back to his draft year, right? We watched him slide, and I felt so bad for the kid because, whether or not that pro day actually made a difference in his draft, I know there was obviously a lot of media attention on it. As much as we respect Mike Mayock, he was kind of the bandwagon driver of that whole, his pro day was terrible, so now he's not a top quarterback option. Falls to the Vikings, plays very well to start, and then, of course, suffers that bad injury. So he comes back from the injury, and he bounces back with the Saints, and that's where you start getting this connection here with the Panthers and why this move starts to look good, because, of course, 2018, Joe Brady is there as an offensive assistant. So they had that year together. And then we just watched Joe Brady orchestrate arguably the greatest offense we've ever seen in college football. So now you blend all that back together. And I mean, obviously Teddy Bridgewater won 5 games in place of Drew Brees. So we know he's got the talent again. And they did a nice job of surrounding Teddy, with the talent that he needs to, start slinging the ball. They go out and get Robbie Anderson. They extend Christian McCaffrey, get a bunch of other receivers, and you still have DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. Now, part of me feels Curtis Samuel eventually is going to get traded, but even if he does, you still have DJ Moore, you still have Robbie Anderson. You got a lot of options there. And then, as you even go further, you start talking about 2021, the draft possibility there. Whether you want to be in position for a quarterback, whether, I don't know if they're going to get Trevor Lawrence, because I don't know if they're going to get the number 1 pick. I think they're going to win a few games. That's going to take them out of that number 1 consideration. But Justin Fields may not be out of the question.
Right.
And Teddy Bridgewater's contract, they can get out of it after 2 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a long-term project, but I think he's a good solution to keep the ship afloat. I've kind of been saying over these first couple of years. And like I said, it's going to be a rocky year, but I think just based on the talent alone of Teddy, could win the Panthers a couple of games here. So I'm fascinated with how all this is going to blend together this year.
And I feel like Teddy's that undervalued guy that everybody writes off.
Yeah.
And I think his whole crew kind of fits with that now. I like the Robbie Anderson signing. I think he's underperformed this point in his career, but I like that you brought that up. But Seth Roberts is a player that the Chiefs fans are familiar with. I think he comes up with some plays from time to time. I'm looking at this. I was a big fan of Farrell Cooper coming out. I think he might get a fresh start that could help him some. An underneath target for certain that I think might be able to help Teddy out. But for me, I think the one that kind of surprised me, the way that they went about it in acquiring Okung and giving up Turner, it's, in the net, I think they improved a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, left tackle coming into the offseason was a huge question mark. So you have that position set. You've protected Teddy Bridgewater's blind side. Yeah, obviously the cost was now you've got a bit of a hole at the 2 guard positions, but you filled them a little bit. I think I think they just signed their Trey Turner's replacement. I think Michael Schofield is probably going to take over that right guard position. Matt Paradis is still there at center. Matt Paradis struggled his first year, but as of now, I think he's still the starting center. And then you go to left guard. Probably right now it's between John Miller, the free agent signing from the Bengals, and Dennis Daly,
Hmm.
who, their sixth round pick last year. Daly basically has experience at almost every position except center. Now, the name I think to really watch here too for the Panthers is going to be Greg Little, their second round pick from last year. Dealt with a lot of concussion issues. Um, but I think some of the moves that the Panthers have made, maybe they have some confidence that he can get healthy and stay healthy and be that left tackle of the future. Obviously it's a different coaching staff from the one that traded up to get Greg Little in the second round last year. But like I said, they really didn't address the tackle position too much other than Okung. But Okung only has 1 year on his deal. He's a free agent after 2020. So what's to stop the Panthers from, if they have the confidence in Little, they could put him at left tackle, because also too, a lot of that money now is eventually going to go to Taylor Moton. I imagine between him and DJ Moore, probably Moton first.
Yeah.
When it comes to who's going to get the next big contract, Taylor Moton is probably next in line. So, and then of course now you've committed all this money to Christian McCaffrey, and then you eventually got to try to pay DJ Moore if you want to do that. So you could stick with Greg Little and kind of give yourself that financial flexibility, because obviously his contract isn't going to be that big. So if he can stay healthy, he very well could be at left tackle, unless they want to move Moton to left tackle in 2021. But Greg Little is definitely going to be, like I said, just watching his health, I think is going to be one of the kind of underlying storylines of this 2020 season, especially along the offensive line.
Yeah. And, I mean, and I'm a McCaffrey fan. Are you surprised at the investment they made and when they made it?
No, and I don't really have a problem with the contract extension. I think he's definitely deserving. You know, I get people are worried because of some of the other running back deals that didn't pan out. You look at obviously Todd Gurley, who got cut by the Rams. You look at Le'Veon Bell, who's I mean, now he's got Frank Gore as his partner, so that's going to be fun to watch. But Christian McCaffrey, we know, is more than just your typical between the tackles running back. I mean, he you could argue he's the best receiving back in the NFL. I mean, 100 catches. I think two of his first three seasons in the NFL. Only two other backs have done some of the things that he's done. We really haven't seen a back this You could argue we haven't seen a back this versatile since the days, the mid 2000s. Guys like LaDainian Tomlinson and Matt Forte.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that they gave him this kind of money. And my argument too, even going back to when I talked about the potential contract extension, now would have been the time to do it because of the new CBA.
Yep.
And that salary cap is going to skyrocket. So even like the Chiefs, eventually they're going to give Patrick Mahomes big money, but the way that salary cap, but the way the salary cap is going to go up, like it's, you could argue maybe now's the time to extend Mahomes as well to kind of lock in those numbers for when the salary cap blows up. That's why it was really interesting. The Panthers did this, and you saw it with a lot of teams in free agency as well. It was a lot of short-term contracts. You really didn't see a lot of contracts longer than 3 years because, players are smart enough to realize, hey, we got ourselves a little bit bigger of a piece of the pie. Now, they didn't obviously get what they wanted. Ideally, they probably wanted 50-50, but they got something out of it. So I think the timing was right for this contract extension. Will he play out the entire contract? I don't know, because it's 6 years, and they've already been kind of wearing and tearing him a little bit. They really didn't have a running back to play him. Now, I will give you a name to watch too at the running back position, and that's Rodney Smith, the undrafted free agent that they signed out of Minnesota. Second all-time leading rusher in Minnesota history. Shifty back, really liked what I saw out of him. So I could see him getting some carries and giving McCaffrey the rest that he needs.
Wow. Man, that's a whole lot. And I love the dexterity there from the first round pick, extended running back to UDFA. But all that goes to say that they did all this to stabilize the offense. They went and picked a defense-only draft. And I liked what they did. They got a couple of guys that I really enjoy. Derek Brown is obviously just going to eat in the middle, and I think that's an easy one. How did you feel about Yetur Gross-Matos? I thought he was kind of a tweener, and I still see a lot of upside about him, but I'm not so sure that I would have picked him at 38. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, Yetur Gross-Matos was an interesting pick, and I think they're more relying, I guess, on his pass rushing abilities. And, there's obviously not a lot of pressure on him. He doesn't have to be that head honcho on the pass rush because they got last year's first-round pick in Brian Burns opposite him. So I really like what they could be bringing here with this pass rush. And then, obviously Derek Brown and K'Wan Short are definitely going to help them out a lot too, because you got to focus on those two guys.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a really nice interior. So it should free up a little bit of space. They could win some one-on-one battles on the end there. So this is definitely a nice young defensive line to watch, especially in the years going forward, because I mean, three of those four guys, that's your future in Burns and Gross-Matos and in Derek Brown. You might still have a couple of years of K'Wan Short, but Derek Brown is going to be the foundation of that defensive line. But I'm intrigued with Gross-Matos. I like the attitude that he has, and I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table.
I think it's going to be interesting up front battle when these two teams play this season. I think your best two picks late in the second and into the fourth, two guys that I had right in the areas about where they were taken. Jeremy Chinn, Troy Pride, they're both going to get time right away, right, at safety and corner respectively.
I love Jeremy Chinn. Listen, we did and I've said this on some of the other crossovers, we did, of course, our own mock draft, like all the hosts got together, and I took Isaiah Simmons, because I was obviously a big fan of Isaiah Simmons. I thought his versatility would have really fit what the Panthers wanted to do in this kind of rebuilding defense. But the way the draft shook out, they almost kind of got both Derek Brown and Isaiah Simmons, if you kind of think about it. I mean, Chinn is kind of a rawer version of
He's Isaiah Light.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to put it, is Isaiah Light. The only thing with Chinn is he just needs time to develop. But with a team like the Panthers, like, that's perfect, because he doesn't have to be the star of this defense. He might become one of the stars, but it's not like they brought him in to be like, okay, you're the missing piece we need for a Super Bowl run. No, this is going to be a couple years that he can come in, develop, and we're going to look back. And Troy Pride, he was another one of my favorite corners at the Senior Bowl. There was a lot of intriguing corners coming out of Mobile. There was Troy Pride. There was Darnay Holmes. There was Dane Jackson. There was a lot of guys that I thought showed out really well at the Senior Bowl. And so it just shows how important the Senior Bowl can be to this draft process, especially a year like this year, when that was really the last time we really got to see some football stuff out of a lot of these players. Because, of course, we had the combine, but then unfortunately, all this nonsense happened out in the world. So I love the Troy Pride pick. I think up and down, I thought they had a great draft, Ryan. And I think 2 or 3 years down the line, I think we're going to look back at this draft and say, okay, we're looking at Matt Rule's first draft in 2020, and boy, he hit it out of the park. Because I think you've got a number of starters on this team. Like you said, Chinn and Pride, I think, are eventually going to be starters. Kenny Robinson can potentially work his way into a starter. I mean, Kenny Robinson has some really nice ball skills. And then Bravion Roy, he's going to work into that defensive tackle rotation, I think, as well. And I mean, he's one of Matt Rule's boys. So, Matt knows what he has in Roy. And there were people that argued that he was one of the best, if not the best players that did not get an invite to the combine. So yeah, up and down. Yeah. Was it strange they went all defense? Yeah, a little bit. But I think in a way that worked to their advantage, because again, Trey Wingo said it best. They had to fix the damn defense, and I think that's exactly what they did.
The only thing that I question, and I want your take on this, Luke Kuechly retired like abruptly, right? Kind of surprised everyone. And it doesn't look like they made much in the way. I nothing against Tier Whitehead, but I don't feel that's a replacement level player of any closeness. Are you still a little bit concerned about the linebacker level?
Yeah, obviously Whitehead is definitely not on Kuechly's level, and Whitehead I think is more of an outside guy anyway. So yeah, you still got to figure out what you're going to do on the inside. I think the first player in line there is probably going to be Jermaine Carter, who I've been pretty intrigued by, especially coming out of college. He was a leader of that Maryland defense. He was a team captain, made a lot of plays. So this, I think, is going to be kind of his time to shine in the middle of the defense. But obviously the spotlight, if we're looking at that position group, is obviously going to be on Shaq Thompson. Now it's really time for him to start proving that he was worth the big contract extension that the Panthers gave him last season. So yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest question marks on this team is how do they replace Luke Kuechly? Cornerback is obviously, they drafted Troy Pride, and they drafted the kid out of Florida International. This is all about replacing James Bradbury as well. Who do you get opposite Dante Jackson, who struggled in his second year as a sophomore? I thought he was definitely up and down, and he got injured. Part of me feels they should still try to re-sign Ross Cockrell. I think that would be a nice way to fill that corner spot. He was a starter last year and played very well coming off the injury in 18. Those are definitely the two biggest concerns right now on this team. Because like you said, you can't replace Luke Kuechly, right? Yeah. There's almost unless you somehow drag Patrick Willis out of retirement, you're not really finding a linebacker that's going to replace Luke Kuechly, unless you feel Micah Parsons or Dylan Moses in next year's draft is going to be the next Luke Kuechly.
And if you do, I have serious arguments to have with you. So, I'm looking forward to this matchup. I'm looking forward to see what the Panthers do. I'm not going to put you on the spot about a prediction or anything. When we know when we play, I think that'll tell us more about this matchup. So I'll just say thank you. I appreciate all the time and insight into a team that Chiefs fans don't know a ton about mostly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was great to get a chance to talk with you, man. And it's definitely fun with these interconference games. Low key, I like these interconference games because, like you said, these are teams you don't get to see too often. So it's definitely fun, especially to visit all these stadiums because the Panthers are going to Arrowhead. So that's always a fun place to play. Exactly. But yeah, really glad we got to do this, man. Really appreciate your time.